Hey everyone, 1 second, just trying to work on getting this chat box up and running. Sorry about this.
In the meantime, hello everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome
You
to
talk to people, Josie.
the first live stream as F1 Clash, the new name to our wonderful game that we all are here to love and talk about. We've been away for a few weeks. Firstly, I think there were some technical problems, and then one of us went on holiday. But we're back now after what feels like a long time. And oh boy, has the real life F1 season changed in that time. And oh boy, has the in-game season changed in that time.
Hasn't it just? So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff happening with F1 Clash. First of all, the name change still feels a little bit strange to me, calling it F1 Clash. There's been occasions where I've accidentally called it F1 Manager, but I'm sure I'll get used to it.
Yeah,
it's all very exciting.
It happens. But yeah, here we are again.
Yeah. And yeah, what we got going on with F1 Clash at the minute, Josie? Team events, that's a big one, isn't it?
That's, yeah, the team events thing has now been announced, right? So
yeah, it has been.
We've got a fantastic new format of weekend event coming up for you, which is the Team Series events. So we're going to cycle through all 10 teams of the real-life Formula One World Championship, and they will all get an event that is focused on them.
Let me just cut in there quickly, Josie. I've got a nice graphic that shows off team events, so let me just... this is going to blank our faces out for a bit, but I'm sure people won't mind. We get rid of the chat box too. So there we go. F1 Team Series events.
That's the stuff. So as it says there, we've got 10 unique themed events that are based off the F1 constructors. And during those events, the drivers for the team in question, so for the Mercedes event, that would be Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton, will have a 10% buff to their stats for the length of the event. So if you want to take advantage of that, obviously, it'll be a great time to expand your roster. As a result, we're going to have the featured drivers as they are available in the store for you to get hold of, among with other things. And yeah, you can use them to gain supremacy and win the prizes at the end of the day. So a very exciting spin on the traditional Grand Prix event structure. Really loving the look of this.
Yeah, also worth mentioning that those buffs, they don't just apply to the team event, they also apply to duels as well, so plenty of opportunity to take advantage of that extra 10%.
That's right, exactly.
Which is very cool. Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that we wanted to point out about team events, didn't we, Josie? So yeah, during the duration of the event, the featured drivers, those will be made available to purchase directly in the store. We'll also have team specific crates as well available in the store that will give you a higher chance of winning the featured drivers, which is pretty cool. It's not a guarantee that you'll get them, but it's a far increased probability.
Exactly, it's a much increased probability, not guaranteed. But that's great news, especially if you're a lower series player and you want to get a hold of some of these upper series drivers. It gives you an opportunity to get those dropped from your crates early, which is really exciting. So if you're still figuring out how to progress up the order, you might be able to get a hold of some interesting drivers that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get through the team series events.
For sure. And you know, with the way that we've reworked the driver stats for this year, a hell of a lot more drivers you know, who are viable to use all the way through the game now. That's right, isn't it, Josie?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it's the first time that we've actually been out and about here since all of that happened. So I'm imagining that there's going to be a lot of conversation regarding all of this. So
yeah.
We've got this amazing team series events coming up. The first one that is in the calendar is the AlphaTauri event. So you'll be able to catch up with the AlphaTauri event in the coming weeks, I believe.
I think that starts next week, doesn't it, Josie?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Because there's not a calendar Grand Prix that weekend.
So expect to see the track details and the weather details for that the early part of next week as well. Just keep on checking our social media channels and our Discord Okay, let's get rid of that image for now and get the chat box back. Just need some people to chat in there for that to show up.
Yeah, we've got people talking. I couldn't see the Facebook chat for a little while, but now I can. I just had to refresh it. So we've got people all over the shop on all of our streaming platforms talking to us right now. And you're going to enter the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, if I'm not mistaken.
I am. First of all, I've got a Legendary Series 3 crate here that's kind of begging to be opened. Spend some bucks on it. We all like a good crate opening, don't we? Let's do that quickly. One other thing about the team events, Josie, am I right in saying that, say, I don't think many people will have a fully maxed out drive at this stage of the season, but that 10% boost doesn't increase the maximum stat possible, does it?
No, that's right. So the highest a stat can be on a driver is 120.
Yeah.
And if there is, for instance, a maxed out Max Verstappen or maxed Verstappen, he has one stat that's 120. That won't go up to 132. It will stay at 120 because that's the cap for everything. But the other stats will increase.
Cool. But yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to post them in the chat, and Josie will do her utmost to answer them, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's
so a couple put the pressure on you there, Josie.
But... yeah, I'm just we're getting through the preamble, and then once you're in your matches, once you've finished opening your crates, that's when I'll start the endless reel of questions that you all so kindly give us.
Right, so qualifying round 3 is still open, which is good. Right, which prize tier do you reckon I should go for, Josie?
I don't know.
I'm in Series 4 at the minute. Challenger, does that sound about right? Oh, I'm not. My league's not high enough. Oh, well, looks like it's going to have to be Junior. But that gives me a better chance of winning, so yay.
I'm guessing you must have cleared your save.
Yes.
Because we have to constantly uninstall and reinstall the game.
Yeah, when I was testing out the team event update. My progress kind of got wiped.
Yeah, happens to us a lot. Big sad.
It's a bit frustrating. I try and make a mental note of what assets I had previously. Mm-hmm. Right, let's see who we got. Ooh. This guy looks like a contender to me. Look at his medals.
Oh my word. Best of luck, mate.
Yeah, cheers. You can go and answer some questions now, Josie. Just let me get on with this. I think I need to concentrate if I'm going to stand a chance.
So a few people are just saying hello. Gaming with King says, who's hyped for team events? I'm hyped. Absolutely. A couple of people have just said hello from their locations, like Argentina, Sheffield, France. So hi everybody. Totu Spurs asks, can we get event crates without spending money like in duels? There will be the Team Series event crates will be available in a solitary offer for bucks. So if you have some bucks lying around, then you should be able to get hold of some of those crates at a significant discount. So enjoy those if you want to pick one of those up. Crime07 says, will bucks be back in race crates? At the moment, we don't have a concrete plan to return bucks to race crates. However, of course, we're always listening to the player feedback, and I know that we are meeting to talk about these kinds of things on a regular basis. So,
just quickly, Josie, on the topic of player feedback, I know you're going to answer a lot of questions today, which is great, but if someone has a question that unfortunately doesn't get answered today, we're going to be running another community AMA on our Discord next week on Wednesday. I think that's scheduled for 4 o'clock UK time. This is the first time we've announced it. I'll put out some more messaging next week about it. But yeah, we're going to have Corey, the game director, on there. I think Josie's going to join us too. I'll, of course, be there. And hopefully we'll have some other Hutchies available to take part. And I think during that AMA, we're going to address some of your questions about the game economy, let you know some of our future plans that have been previously unannounced. So yeah, make sure you come and join us for that next week on Wednesday in our Discord. I'll also be creating a special text channel on the Discord where you can kind of like pre-ask your questions. So yeah, really looking forward to that. It's been a little while since we've done one, so should be cool.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Rafa491 says buff rewards in GPs. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, at the moment the GP rewards are lower than they were last year. That's partly as a response to the fact that the series is lower and everyone's down back in the bottom series again. So a small reward is still pretty meaningful. I do believe that there is a plan to bring the rewards up closer to the 2020 levels in the future.
That's correct. Apologies if anyone's watching my race progress. I'm not concentrating fully. But we do have plans to kind of like phase the Grand Prix and League rewards as the season goes on. We'll go into more details about that during the AMA next week. So yeah, if that's of interest to you, make sure to join it.
Yep. Matthias Defler asks, question, what about the qualifying system in duels? Why we always start in the back no matter what setup or drivers we use. Now that's interesting. As far as I'm aware, and in all of the testing that I've done and seen, it's not quite as bad as that. If you're shooting your way up the series, of course, the AI cars that you're racing around are calibrated by each series. So it may be that you just need to do a little bit of upgrading and then you should be able to get ahead of some of your competition. But of course, if it is a consistent issue, then something else could be happening, at which point you should probably contact support. Toto Spurs is asking, do you plan to rebalance car components? Drivers are perfect this year, but components are terrible, to be honest. So at the moment, of course, the season is still young, less than a month in. So we are looking at the results of the balance changes that we've made and the matchmaking and all that. It happens every time, especially around the season resets, we get fresh data. At the moment, I don't think that we're like specifically zeroing in on components as being something that are like overly troublesome. But if there's something you want us to focus on, then let us know in the chat. Galatasaray asks, can you fix the pit lane? It's so stupid the cars do unsafe releases and some pits are so silly. Russia, Spain and Baku come to mind. So one thing about unsafe releases in the pits is that we didn't want to have it such that the cars have physical space where they need to wait for each other in the pit lane, because it adds a level of randomness that could be quite frustrating. There are 24 cars on the grid, and there's always going to be some car pitting around the same time as you. And if you get held up and that causes you to lose position through no fault of your own, that would be frustrating. So that's not something that we really want to do. Voltex is asking, are we ever going to get 25% races? I'm guessing, are you talking about 25% of the full Grand Prix length?
That's what I'd imagine.
Yeah. A lot of people have been asking for that, and we had that humorous config that went out to the world with a 40-lap Spa race. That we have the technology, and we're currently trying to figure out the best ways to use what we have so that we don't have to make too many changes for like a sort of entry-level version of that, and also thinking about more detailed things that we can do with it. So it's definitely in our frame of mind at the moment that we would like to do something with changing the lengths of the races. Watch this space. Ballerino is asking when we're going to rework the pit lane. It's horrible gameplay at the moment. So at the moment, based on what you and Galatasaray have said, I guess you're not just talking about cars facing through each other, but there's something else happening. If you could be more specific for me, that would be terrific. Lurking Gherkin 78 says, why haven't you made it a requirement to use 2 different tyre compounds for dry races? Now, that is a real rule in F1. So definitely there was a discussion about that when we were designing the game. But one thing that we did is that we wanted to keep the game quite simple. So instead of having 3 tyre compounds to choose from, we made it only 2. And one thing that we've done with that is that in order to make it so that you don't have to use both tires, because like otherwise it's a bit constraining, you can open up your options and use either compound multiple times or both.
This race hasn't gone too well, Josie. I was too preoccupied looking at chat and stuff. I don't think I'm going to win this one. It's a GP though. It's all about picking up the points, isn't it? So
Matthias
see how it goes.
Defler is saying, I understand that a high series the rivals increase their stats and quali gets hard, but at the GP champion events, the same setup and drivers give us a mid-grid quali. Oh, that's interesting, actually. I didn't know that there was a marked difference between the two systems. I would really like to look into that, actually. Okay, yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention. If you could give us some data on support, that would actually be really handy. A ballerina was saying, Josie, we're losing positions in the pit lane due to AI on 0% tyres, cars not respecting the cars in the lane after the pit, not to mention the entrance to the pit lanes causing massive jams. Oh, I see. Those are the things we're talking about. Yeah, those things I believe are being looked into at the moment. I think it was just sort of the unsafe release thing that got me there. Yeah, that should be fine. Yeah, okay, sorry about that. I think that those points are already to our attention, but if not, then of course you should always message us again.
Into my second race now, Josie.
Okay, good stuff.
See how it goes. Spain. Poor qualifying from Perez. Dear.
Zaydada is asking, why is qualifying in Series 12 so hard compared to qualifying in GP Contender or even Champion? So this was related to the question I just answered a couple of questions ago, that I don't actually know what's going on there. And you should send us some more evidence, as detailed as possible, so that we can get to the bottom of it, because there shouldn't be a gigantic difference, especially in Champion, I should say, especially in Champion. There are so many questions coming in. I've just realized that the same thing has happened again, where the Facebook chat has frozen for me. So I haven't seen any of the Facebook messages for a long time.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Are you going to try a refresh? Will that
Yeah,
keep the old messages? It should do, shouldn't it?
Yes, it does. It does. Major Jeff asks, any plans to slow series progression for players to develop a winning car and driver setup? So you mean to say that, of course, I think I know what you mean, is that if you're in Series 5, for instance, you don't have time to create like a really dialed in Series 5 setup before you move on to Series 6, for instance. If that's what you don't mean, then do correct me. But yeah, the progression this year is a little bit more consistent than it was in previous season. In 2020, for instance, Series 8 through 11, players essentially just shot straight through them, which sort of meant that even though we had all of this content with the addition of 12 series, because it was 7 in 2019, that it wasn't really getting utilized, and that made us sad. So it's a bit more consistent this time. But of course, you don't just need to use Series 7 components and Series 7 and above. So you'll continue to get those components out in the crates that you win. And if you specifically want to go back and get a particular component, then you can drop back to the series that they come from to get a higher chance of receiving those components or drivers. Toto Spurs says, hey, Josie, do you plan to add more rain in Series 12 on tracks like Yas Marina or Bahrain, and some high temperatures in France and Monza, for instance, to create more fun and adaptation? So the weather profiles for the tracks that you're talking about in the series, and also the ones that are used in GPs, the boundaries for those are based off some real world data. So for instance, when we create new tracks, it's essentially not really going to happen that there's going to be rain at Yas Marina or Bahrain. I've seen some versions of the track with a little bit of rain, but it's very unlikely. But yeah, at the moment, of course, there's 12. Oh, I lost my place. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there's a set of tracks for Series 12 that are sort of a fixed weather data. So if you want more variety in that, then yeah, let us know. Galatasaray is saying that the AI is maxed out or really difficult all the way through the series, even when I use really high-level drivers and parts. So this is something that's been mentioned a few times in the context of duels, and I find it very interesting, of course, because the AI is tuned to follow sort of what we would expect a loadout to look like for those series. And it's very similar to how it was last year. So if there's something really different, then that definitely needs to be brought to our attention. So yeah, definitely send us information if you have it.
Yeah, the best place to probably do that is on our Discord or sending us a message on social media. Discord's probably the best place though. So
Yes. iMore is asking why the 2020 drivers qualify at the back, like they have 0 upgrades when they're nearly fully upgraded. That's an interesting one. We've heard some people talking about that. We've been collating that feedback recently because it looks like it's disproportionate to the stats that they would have. So even in Series 1, they seem to qualify very close to the back in a way that we wouldn't expect. There is going to be an element of reduced performance for the 2020 drivers because back in 2020, the max stats that you could achieve on a single stat for a driver was 100, and now it's 120. But since the AI that you race against currently use 2021 loadouts, that means that they are actually of a higher power level than you would expect in comparison to a 2020 roster from the same kind of point in progression. We are actually looking into whether or not we can bring the 2020 AI teams back for legacy races. That's something that's currently being looked into, but it could be quite complicated. But aside from that, it seems to follow on from what other people are saying, that even when they're using their 2021 loadout in duels, they're qualifying really poorly. So there could be two effects that are coming together to make that particularly strong or, troublesome. So yeah, we're looking at it. Of course, the season is still young. Rafa491 says, good afternoon. Oh, sorry, I missed a question. Toto Spurs says, do you plan to add duels against friends soon? So we've got the social feature that we've been working on for quite some time now, which is clubs. Clubs will have some interesting new ways to either interact with friends or sort of group together to achieve stuff. So there should be a few things in there that can help you out and maybe will help you out. We do also want to have it so that you can just pick to race with a friend. I don't know whether or not that's specifically on the club's roster to be worked on or not.
And there are, again, to do with clubs, there are plans, aren't there, to reward players based on how well their clubs do?
That's right, yeah.
So you'll see some rewards based on how well your clubs perform. Is it weekly, Josie, that we do that?
For clubs?
Club, yeah.
I believe it is weekly.
Yeah.
I don't quite remember. Rafa491 says, good afternoon, how will the new events be? So if you're talking about the team series events, they will follow a very similar structure to the Grand Prix events that you're familiar with. Some of the big changes are going to be related to the fact that the drivers of the featured team will have a 10% buff, which is going to be very interesting if you want to use them to either expand your roster or secure victory. So from there, they'll be available in several different guises in the store and will be stronger not only in the event itself, but also in duels if you want to make use of them there. Then I think there'll be a couple of other little changes related to the sort of the minutiae of the event, but the structure is going to be very similar. There'll be a qualifying round and an opening and final rounds, as we see on regular GP events nowadays. There's a bit of a debate breaking out in the Twitch chat. Galatasaray says that the gameplay is terrible, overtaking is near impossible, and the pit lane is terrible. Cars are being nearly impossible to overtake when on opposite weather drivers, wet tyres, dry track, or even if they have dead tyres. Meanwhile, one Obsessed says that Galatasaray is way too negative and that there are enough places on each track where you can overtake quite easily, you just have to figure it out. So definitely there are places to overtake. At the moment, it does seem that there are a couple of elements that are making the game quite difficult, especially if you're qualifying near the back. But of course, as we've said, we are still using our time effectively to make the new season as good as possible. We're reviewing the data and player feedback, so be patient with us. We are doing our best, and hopefully we'll be able to iron out if there are any of these persistent problems over time. Okay, so I've caught up with Twitch chat for a little bit, so now I'm going to switch to a different one.
Is Facebook working for you, Josie, now? back in business?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Good.
So a lot of people in YouTube are saying we want news. The game is 2 years old and has 0 news. Updating drivers and parts is not necessarily something new. So I'm guessing you're talking about either a new feature or something new to do. And that is a very good point. Obviously, we are working on the club's feature set. Those are on the way. With the new season, it's been obviously pushed back a little bit just as we managed to get everything for the new season sorted out on time. But it's on the way, and yeah, we are aware that it's time for some new features. So yeah, be patient with us, and we will bring something as soon as possible.
I think that's one of the things we might go into a bit more detail in like AMA next week as well. So, you know, if clubs are of interest to you, make sure to tune in for that on our Discord next week on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. There's a few people in the YouTube chat that are speaking in, I believe it's either Spanish or Portuguese. I apologize, but I cannot understand what you're writing. I don't really have time to translate it. I'm terribly sorry. I'll try in a minute, but at the moment there are so many questions coming in.
Yeah.
Cristiano Lopez Beck says Senna forever. That's yeah.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Javier Munoz is asking how many stats do the driver boosts give? So what it will do is the drivers all have, I think it's 6 stats that are up to about 120 as a maximum, starting down towards 0. What will happen is that these boosts will, for the team series events, will increase their stats, all 6 of them separately, by 10%. So if they had a consistency of 100, then they would have a consistency of 110 during the event in the GP itself, and also in duels.
And next week it's Gasly and Sonoda, isn't it? So if you've got those in your roster, might be worthwhile trying to give those a little bit of a bump and upgrade before the event to take full advantage of that 10% stat boost.
Exactly, and during as well, because there will be crates available that will increase the drop rate of those 2 drivers. So that's going to be really useful as well if you want to pick up some cool drivers. KJ Alde says, I need bucks in crates. There are bucks in crates. I think that the big thing the community is talking about at the moment is that race crates no longer drop bucks. Of course, that decision, we're pretty confident that it's the right choice to make at the moment. But of course, with your feedback and our data, we're always reviewing it.
I do think as part of clubs, isn't that right, Josie, that your rewards for how well your club does will consist at least partly of some bucks?
I don't know for certain, but yeah, there's plans to do more things like that. So yeah, in the future you might be able to get bucks another way.
Yeah. And we've also heard a lot of the comments from players about how race crate points don't carry over. So that's something that's on the team's radar. So stay tuned. We might have some news about that in the future.
Yeah, that would be a nice longer term gremlin to put behind us, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
David Chokeli is saying game need big fix. Yep, we understand. Of course, it's a new season. We have already put out a couple of fix updates, and there will be more on the way. And we're always looking at the data. Scott Osborne says that they're loving the new season. Always love the start of the new season. Me too. It's the time when I start playing more and more and more, like most of all during the year. Regan Frary says, who's the most famous person to play this game? I don't know exactly, but we've definitely had some Twitter attention from Valtteri Bottas at some point.
Yep.
When we were, what was it, our mustache of the year? Or F1 mustache of all time was
that was it, yeah.
Yeah, that's it, F1 mustache of all time. So yeah, he's aware of it, and I know that some people in the paddock have dabbled. When it comes to outside F1, I don't know about you. If you've have you heard of any sort of very famous people picking up the app, Ian?
Was that for me? No, I don't think so. I did actually DM Bottas just to thank him for his tweets about the mustache stuff, and he said that he'd heard of the game, but I don't think he's much of a gamer. That's what he told me.
That's okay. Not
Yeah,
everybody.
he says a lot of the younger guys on the grid play the games, so like Norris and those guys. Leclerc, I think he's a bit of a gamer as well, isn't he? So
Yes, yes, they do. They do their Twitch streaming and all their sim racing. Big fan.
yeah.
Okay. Matthew Askey says, it's crap now, deleted app and leaving. I would love for you to message support and let them know exactly what kind of feedback, detailed feedback you have. Because if there are things that we can do to improve your experience and the experience of others, more data and information is always the way to go. Chris Golding says, since the new season, there are no easy races now. I can be 12 places on the grid clear and still caught at the second bend. Spoilt it for me. Wow. I mean, I would imagine that having a game that is like really close and can be a bit intellectually stimulating would be good for you. It's certainly been something that I've really enjoyed from the new season. But obviously, yeah, there's nothing quite like the dopamine of knowing that you just like really, really got it just right. So I do appreciate what you mean. Johnny Payne says, we need team orders so we can switch our drivers if on faster tyres. Yes, that is actually something that was, I believe that there was something in the original prototype of F1 Clash that was called dilemmas. And one of them was to do with like team orders about swapping position. It's something that we didn't make it past the prototype stage because we found it didn't quite fit in with what we were imagining. But yeah, particularly the driver swapping thing definitely is something that people keep asking about. So really appreciate your feedback on that one. Thank you. Tang Huang Nguyen is asking, please add bucks again in race crates, guys. Yeah, we appreciate that it's been a source of bucks for a lot of people. At the moment, of course, we are we think that we've got ourselves in just about the right place with the data, and that taking them out of the race crates looked like a good idea. Of course, the feedback from players has been a bit of an eye opener. So yeah, we're still looking at all those things. Thank you. Sergio Sanchez Dominguez says it would be great if driver stats change during the season according to the real F1 scenario. Yes, so that is definitely quite a cool thing that we could do to sort of move it further into the authenticity bracket for F1 fans. Obviously, we fine-tune the stats of the drivers based on their historic experience and their recent form, and then also a little bit of data from F1 testing for the year is also used. Just to try and keep it as authentic as we can for the start of the season. One thing about like changing drivers based on their in-season form would be that we could end up in a weird situation where a lower series driver ends up sort of outpacing a higher series driver. So for instance, if we reacted too quickly to the fact that Sebastian Vettel had struggled in the first few races of 2021, then we would have to sort of rejig him back up a little bit after his excellent performance in Monaco. The thing about F1 is that driver form, apart from in a couple of exceptions, driver form is quite fluid. People have good races and bad races, and we just want to try and get the performance of the drivers as authentic as possible when you consider the whole season. Sven Koch says, I love the game. Only the coin rewards in GP are low, but Epic Cards okay. Yep, so in the near future, the Grand Prix rewards will increase more towards 2020 levels after the early season period has ended, so that should help you out. Tang Huan Nguyen says, please let us have another chance to replay a GP race that unfortunately gets forfeited. That's a very good idea. We are looking at ways to mitigate the fact that sometimes players are getting disconnected from GP races and it's ruining their bracket. So hopefully we'll have news on that sometime soon. Nicholas Curtis says, why have they made the game worse? 140% extra for Legend League last season dropped down to 60%. That's crazy. To drop it more than 50%, wouldn't 100% be better? So what we were finding was that in 2020, the players who were in the very high league brackets were getting an enormous amount of high-level assets from those crates. And that was posing a problem because, of course, that's part of what led to the use and requirement of the trade-in feature. The trade-in feature, of course, has not been scrapped. It's still in the game, but in order that players aren't sort of ramming up against it and getting frustrated from all of these repeat or maxed out drops, that's something that we've done as a reaction. There are so many questions, oh my word.
Had some feedback from the chat to kind of go all out to buy some Alonso assets with my remaining CC points, so I've just done that, Josie. Swapped him in
Nice.
for Perez, so let's see how he does. That's how he does.
Well, that's
Is that
pretty
him?
cool.
That's a good start. Good qualifying.
Oh my god, so many questions. Toto Spurs says, hey Josie, during the team event, do standard/gold crates give more Gasly and Sonoda cards, or is it just the special crate? It's just the special crate. But fortunately, you will be able to pick them up in the store for bucks. So if you have any bucks lying around, then you should be able to put them to good use and pick up some of those. Semtex asks, question, how do you determine the driver stats for the year? It seems strange that Hamilton's fuel management and tyre wear are poor compared to other drivers, and his consistency isn't the highest of all the grid. That was just an example, but I'm curious. Thank you in advance. So one thing that we do, firstly, I've talked about like the overall profile of the stats just earlier, which is, we try and keep it authentic over the entire season as to their overall strengths. When it comes to which stats go for which driver, all of the drivers are set up to have a strongest stat, which is their specialty, and then they run down in a relatively linear, I don't know if linear is the right word, but a linear progression down to their weakest stat, which is lowest. And what we do want to do, of course, is that we want to have it so that the strengths and weaknesses roughly spread out evenly. So there's always going to be some driver or other who has tyre wear as their best stat. There's always going to be a driver somewhere that has wet weather as their best stat. And we try and play matchmaker to the sort of real life form that you see of the drivers in the real F1. So the reason that Hamilton, you're right, is incredibly consistent. But one of the really defining things about his performance, and I think this was a lot inspired by the race that we had at Turkey in 2020, his wet weather driving is just truly so imperious that it was decided to give the wet weather as his top strength. I believe it was the same that year as well, and that's just simply because of his historical performance. It's harder to do for the new drivers, and of course, because we want to spread everything out, it means that it can't be absolutely perfect all of the time, but the objective is to make it as authentic as possible as much of the time as possible. Rafa491 asks, will the alloy trunks be legendary, Series 5, or in the future will it change to Series 7 to have a chance to take Hamilton, or I guess that's Verstappen written. I can't remember what the alloy crate is, but is it a GP reward? If you could let me know. Dominic says that they think that all crates should give bucks if the race crate doesn't, from green to legendary. Yeah, the structure of most of the crates hasn't changed that much from the game's beginning, only really the drivers and components that drop out. The race crate change is sort of one of the bigger ones. And yes, I do know exactly what you're talking about. Of course, the thing about bucks is that we do want to keep them quite exclusive. Matthias Defra asks, do you have any plan to make the game cheaper to buy packs? I understand that the official license of F1 must be expensive, but it's hard to believe that an event pack is more expensive than a top title of a top console, especially now that you deleted the bucks from race crates. So one of the other things, of course, that you get from those offers is a big wad of bucks that you can spend in the store to buy the drivers and components of your choice. And that associates with a pretty significant cost. So a lot of the value in that top pack that you're talking about also comes from the bucks and the boosts. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that makes it quite a good deal, and is, as is written on the offer detail, a 60% discount than if you were to try and buy all of those things all together. Presto Jeff asks, can you provide some insight into the decision to make upgrading costs so high at the lower levels? It seems that at high levels, coins are useless, just like last season. So there are a couple of things going in there. Firstly, you've identified that a lot of players are able to get a hold of a lot of coins. So one thing about those upgrades is that they are a little bit more expensive now, in order to make sure that you have some stuff to spend your coins on, because we do understand that there's going to be a bit of question marks over your head if you've got a lot of coins to sit on and nothing to do with them. Hopefully as well, we'll come up with some other things for you to do with those coins in the future. Preso Jeff says, be happy that there are so many questions. It shows we care about the game. Yeah, don't worry.
Yep.
I'm not mad at the questions. I'm just always struggling to keep up. I'm trying to get through as many of them as possible. That is merely the mark of my frustration.
You're doing a great job, Jose.
Thank you so much. I'm working hard. Toto Spurs asks, what's the long-term project for the game? Can we expect something huge in a few months? So the next thing that we are working on is the club's feature. And we've also got a couple of other projects on the back burner. You've seen that there are plenty of comments in the YouTube chat about wanting not only news, but specifically new features. We do hear you guys. So yeah, we want to bring new features to F1 Clash. It's something that we're looking at hard. And hopefully we can give you some cool new stuff in the future. But clubs comes first, and that should be pretty fun. Toto Spurs asks, do you plan to add event drivers cards, like reserve drivers cards for Kvyat or Hulkenberg, for example? That is something that we would like to do very much. It's been on our radar, and every time that we come through a new series, we're looking at ways to do things just like this. So far, any attempts that we've made have been unsuccessful. But yeah, I would love to get the official reserves in the game. I think that it would be
great, wouldn't it? There's quite a lot of red tape involved.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same kind of thing that we deal with when people ask us if we can get like old school legendary drivers in. Is that it's more legal holes to jump through, and is going to be a challenge. We would love to do something like that, and I think reserve drivers are a great opportunity for that as well, because it's very current, and it really adds something for you to be able to take on a reserve driver in your team. Because if you were starting a new F1 team today, I think probably the first place you would look is a reserve driver potentially. Galatasaray asks, will you fix skipping/swiping, where players can close the app after matching up and do the race again? Yeah, this is something that we find that we do find very sort of interesting and a little bit confusing. It's definitely on our radar. We've had enough reports about it now. We would like to fix it, but obviously that's all I really know about the subject at this time.
Question there from Adriano on Twitch about team series, if they're designed to kind of like fill the gaps where there's no race in the real life F1 calendar. I think that's pretty much the case, isn't it, Josie?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing here. Of course, we want to fill up the Grand Prix events calendar in F1 Clash with exciting events coming around as often as possible. Of course, we had a couple of weeks just this last month where there were no Grand Prix events at all, and I missed them. So, yeah, this is something that we can offer you when there's not an F1 calendar Grand Prix on, and we hope you enjoy it. Presto Jeff is saying the point was that it seems to it's harder at lower levels and at higher levels it's still too easy and you can afford everything. Shouldn't it be the reverse? Easy to upgrade at lower levels to hook in new players and then harder at higher levels for those who want everything at max levels. You're definitely right. In an ideal world, that would be a really nice thing to have. One thing that consistently surprises us, and maybe it shouldn't anymore, is the lengths that our most dedicated players will go to play like as often as possible. And that's one of the things, like the level of time investment that our top players are putting into the game is just remarkable. We're really happy that you're along for the ride with us. But yes, it does mean that you have a massive opportunity to earn a lot of coins. You'll notice that the top series this year pay out a lot less than they did in 2020. And that is part of an effort to make sure that players are not sort of going into the ridiculous trillions of coins. Though, yes, you are right that it's still quite easy to get a lot of coins at the top series. KLL Pop 55566 says, will team series rewards be team liveries? That is something that we cannot offer you. The liveries that are on the F1 teams themselves are exclusive to them. And so one of the things that we can't do is let you sort of pose as a real F1 team in your livery. Toto Spurs asks, are we happy with the current safety car ratio? Why sometimes there is an incident but no safety car deployed? Do you want to add punctures in the game later? So I actually haven't seen the data on the new safety car occurrence. When it comes to crashes where there's no safety car, that is something that happens in the real F1, of course. Sometimes a car simply goes off and there's a brief VSC or a yellow flag and it sort of clears up on its own. So it's not completely outside of the realm of possibility. Dominiac is starting their live stream in 4 minutes. So have a great weekend, they say.
Cool. I think, shall we host our Maniac stream afterwards?
I think we should.
Yeah.
I'm trying very hard to get to all of your questions. I'm obviously I cannot get to them all. There are so many. I do really love your engagement, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to see. Yeah, thanks so much for getting involved. And yeah, if Josie doesn't get round to your question, remember we do have the AMA happening next week on Wednesday on our Discord. So hopefully we can get round to it then.
Okay, Nicholas Curtis says something. If you say send info, but in-game support are useless understanding what you're trying to say. So one thing that you can do is just really provide a lot of detail, because when reports of a similar nature start to come in, they'll get collated by support, and when we get to see them, obviously the more detail that we have with regard to your specific feedback, the better and easier it is for us to identify the exact problem and then come up with an exact solution. So yes, I do appreciate, of course, that we do say contact support. It's the best place for getting your words down on paper in front of us. But yeah, more detail is always going to be better. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. Oh my god.
You're doing a great job,
Josie.
Josie.
is asking about the fastest lap point. Yeah, that's been brought up before on this live stream, and yeah, it's a great idea. We would like to do it. I don't have any guarantees about when it could happen. Nicholas Curtis says, this season, the only stat that matters is tyre management. Okay, so that is very interesting. This is sort of one of the first things that I've seen about like, oh, well, now the new OP stat is this. I've seen a lot of people in the Discord are talking about pit stop times as well. So yeah, cool. That's interesting. Thank you very much. We'll probably be looking into that. We can probably verify that at some point in the near future. Cleo Mel asks, how can we add you as friends in game? Well, we both use local accounts, or at least I do. Do you use a local account?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, because we have to reset them all the time. So that means like we don't actually have a friends to add to, I'm afraid. Where am I?
I think that person's just been watching me play the game and wants some easy pickings, Josie.
That might be it. Yeah.
Saying that, oh no, Alonso literally just got pipped to a first place finish like 5 meters before the finishing line.
Oh no.
Oh well. Thanks to whoever's suggesting upgrading Alonso, by the way. That worked out pretty well.
Gaming with King says, great stream, team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keshu Rao says, please allow us to change the Facebook account. I thought you could do that. I thought that there was a way if you go into the flag menu that you could sign out or re-sign in with Facebook, but maybe I'm wrong on that. So I'm sorry if that's not true. Or do you mean move your F1 manager account from one Facebook account to another? Because that's a limitation of Facebook rather than a limitation of F1 Clash. Gaming with Trevor Whitey says, please can you increase the crashes and safety cars, and what are the points of breakdown? So with crashes and safety cars, we did make some changes, I believe, to increase their occurrence. But I have not seen the data yet on how often they're occurring now and if that satisfies us. When it comes to breakdowns, of course, that's related to the reliability stat. There is going to be always a temptation to try and minimize the reliability stat for all out speed. But you do need to make sure that your reliability stat also keeps up with that. So always keep an eye on that. Fabio Fias says F1 Manager is now F1 Clash. Yes, this game is F1 Clash. It used to be F1 Manager, but we have changed the name with the 2021 season. So welcome to F1 Clash. And we're seriously running out of time now. It is 1700. We have another meeting to get to, Ian.
Yes, we do. That's pretty good timing because I just finished the races.
Great, that's perfect. And I believe Jarmaniac is starting their live stream right now, so we will host those now. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I'm sorry if I did not get time to get around to your question. There have been so many. We're really grateful. But yes, we shall see you probably in 2 weeks' time, provided that there's not some other kind of holiday and or disaster.
Well, we also might see some of these people again in text form on our AMA next week as well.
That's right.
So yeah, Wednesday, put that in your calendar next week. Be starting roughly around 4 o'clock UK time. So yeah, put that in your diaries.
And I've just finished my coffee. Perfect timing.
Yes. Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you joining us and for all your questions. And hope you all have a nice weekend. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.